To double the size of its economy from 136 billion ringgit in 2019 to 282 billion ringgit in 2030.
It's not easy, but it entails hard work from everybody, the government, the business community, and the society at large. Meaning, Sarawak's economy needs to grow on average of 6 to 8% per annum. And our economic sector will have to focus on diversifying revenue streams, improving work efficiency, and enhancing productivity.
Under the State Post-COVID-19 Development Strategy 2030 (PCDS 2030), the state government has identified key economic sectors and enablers to transform Sarawak's economic landscape. Abang Johari said under the plan, Sarawak will also emphasize diversifying its economy with a special focus on modernizing agriculture, strengthening infrastructure, advancing tourism, and accelerating human capital development.
This will open many opportunities for productive economic activities in both rural and urban areas, providing greater job and business opportunities to all, including SMEs. By participating in these opportunities, you will be able to benefit and contribute back to local economic growth, supporting Sarawak in its ambition to achieve 2030.
In a separate development, Abang Johari has called upon Sarawak Energy Berhad or SEB to give equal chance to local vendors on mega projects. He added that as long as they constantly deliver quality work, local vendors who provide good service can establish cooperation with SEB wherever the energy company goes.
Then you can follow SEB wherever as we go, because you are the vendor and SEB has confidence in you. Assuming SEB goes to Kalimantan, surely SEB want the vendors to work with them. Of course, kalau Kalimantan terpaksa kerjasama dengan orang Indonesia lah, on joint venture basis, meaning SME in Sarawak can have a joint venture with Indonesia to provide services that is required if SEB is the equity partner in a project outside Sarawak. And this is how Petronas also grow their own vendors. I think Dato' Wino, the CEO kita tahu hal itu. Then if you are consistent and you are very diligent in terms of managing your businesses, I'm sure you also can grow big.
Adding to that, the Premier of Sarawak said local vendors could also establish joint ventures abroad, such as with Indonesia, provided that SEB is made an equity partner in projects outside Sarawak too. He stressed that in order for SEB vendors to grow big, they must be consistent and diligent in managing their businesses.
Sarawak aspires to continue to achieve more sustainable growth and prosperity through affordable, reliable and renewable energy, and the Sarawak government will provide support and promote public-private collaboration in the renewable energy value chain. And this will ensure ample opportunities for our local vendors and contractors to engage with the energy industry.
Meanwhile, in an increasing business landscape emphasizing on digitalization, the renewable energy sector continues to play an important role in supporting other industries. Therefore, Under the post-COVID-19 development strategy plan, Sarawak aims to maintain at least 60% renewable energy in its capacity mix by 2030 to achieve the state's goal of becoming a regional powerhouse.
Now, the Yang di-Pertua Negeri, Tun Pehin Sri Abdul Taib Mahmud, received a courtesy visit from the Eastern Field Commander, Lieutenant General Datuk Marzuki Muhammad, at his residence in Demak Jaya, Kuching. During the visit, Tun Taib was invited to the Defence Services Exhibition, or DSA, which is set to take place from March 28 to March 31st, 2022. Marzuki said the exhibition will be held at the Malaysia International Trade and Exhibition Centre, and various programs will be implemented during the exhibition.
Dan selain daripada pameran saja, akan juga diadakan what we call it Putrajaya Forum, yang mana yang akan melibatkan menteri-menteri pertahanan dan juga panglima-panglima angkatan tentera. So this forum is for us to sit down and untuk kami berbincang dan menyuarakan pendapat tentang isu-isu yang bersabit dengan keselamatan, especially keselamatan serantau di rantau ASEAN dan sebagainya. Kita akan adakan seminar iaitu which is cyber terrorism. So this is a new seminar, we call few of the speakers yang all these good speakers yang mana yang very expert in cyber terrorism, because as you know, cyber terrorism is one of the threats that we are facing.
DSA is organized every 2 years, and this is its 17th organization. Senior Defence Minister Datuk Sri Hishamuddin Tun Hussein and Minister of Home Affairs Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainuddin were scheduled to officiate the exhibition. Meanwhile, Tun Taib is expected to attend the exhibition on March 31st, 2022. The Sarawak government plans to construct utility corridors along road shoulders to place electric cables, pipelines and other utility construction materials. Minister of Utilities and Telecommunications Datuk Julaihi Narawi said the construction of these corridors would be a long-term solution to the lack of utilities for various projects, especially in remote areas.
Kadang-kadang kita mempunyai masalah di tempat-tempat tertentu. Jadi perkataan izin lalu maknanya kita memberi kebenaran. Kalau tanah kita beri kebenaran kepada pihak Sesko, SCB ataupun mereka ingin nak meletakkan saluran pipe di kawasan tersebut. Jadi oleh itulah maka izin lalu ini amat penting. Walaupun kadang-kadang kita berhadapan dengan masalah tidak mendapat izin lalu. Jadi untuk itulah maka untuk masa hadapanlah saya dan rakan-rakan memikirkan bahawa kalaulah izin lalu ini menjadi masalah, kita merasakan bahawa utility corridor, ya, kawasan khas untuk membolehkan kabel elektrik, saluran pipe ini dapat dibina tanpa gangguan, rasanya amat diperlukan.
Julaihi said the government has crafted a rural electrification master plan to accelerate the connection of electricity supply to rural areas through several government-funded projects, adding that the government has allocated a total of 2.37 billion ringgit to implement a total of 177 electricity supply projects in rural areas throughout Sarawak. To reduce the burden faced by rural folks, the government introduced the Additional Late Applicant Fund, or ALAF, under the Rural Electrification Scheme to ensure all households are connected to an electricity supply. However, the number of contractors are still insufficient, as the Ministry and Sarawak Energy are targeting a total of 52 skilled electrical workers to complete the ALAF projects by 2025. To date, 20 contractors with 33 workers are implementing ALAF projects statewide.
跟随4位不同舞蹈背景的舞者，体验沙劳越当地传统文化、美食和舞蹈。在这一集中，我们将去到沙劳越斯吴的 Melanau 屋，体验 Melanau 传统文化。舞者们能在一天结束前学会这 Melanau 传统舞蹈吗？让我们一起尽情期待。
Jual program kotak.
Biasalah, hari aku banyak submit idea lah di TVS dekat Picit.
Oh, macam best je. Tahun tak ada sih.
Tahun tu ada. Jadi, mana-mana kita orang yang mau submit idea best-best kita orang boleh cuba di Picit.
Sertai TVS Picit 2022 di www.tvstv.my/picit dan hantar penyertaan anda sebelum 20 Mac 2022.
Welcome back to TVS Nightline. Now, over 14 million individuals, or 62.9% of the adult population in Malaysia, have received the COVID-19 booster dose as of yesterday.
Based on the COVID Now website, 97.5% of the adult population in the country have been inoculated and 98.7% have received at least one dose of the vaccine. For children aged between 5 and 11, a total of 929,733 individuals, or 26.2% of the group, have received the first dose of the vaccination under the National COVID-19 Immunization Program for Children. As for adolescents aged between 12 and 17, 90.1% of the population have completed the COVID-19 vaccination, while 2,898,437, or 93.2%, have received at least one dose of the vaccine. Meanwhile, according to the Health Ministry's GitHub portal, 115 deaths due to COVID-19 were recorded yesterday, with Johor recording the highest number at 25, followed by Sabah 24, Selangor 18, 8 each in Kedah and Negeri Sembilan, Perak 7, 6 each in Pahang and Kuala Lumpur, Kelantan 4, Penang 3, 2 each in Melaka and Perlis, while Sarawak and Terengganu with 1 death each.
Meanwhile, about 91% of brought-in death or BID cases involving COVID-19 were unaware that they had contracted the virus. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said this was based on an analysis done by the Health Ministry, or MOH, on 113 BID cases between February 5th and 21st.
Kita sedang melihat juga peningkatan dari segi BID ataupun brought-in death, mereka yang meninggal dunia sebelum dapat perawatan di fasiliti kesihatan. Ini juga membimbangkan. Kita telah buat analisa daripada 5 hingga 21 Februari. Daripada 113 BID yang kita analisa daripada 5 hingga 21 Februari, didapati bahawa 91% tidak tahu mereka ada COVID-19 dan hanya diuji dan didapati positif post-mortem.
In this connection, Khairi advised the public, especially senior citizens with symptoms like fever and cough, to immediately seek treatment at health facilities.
Sebab didapati bahawa melalui survey yang kita telah buat, lebih daripada 50% ahli keluarga ataupun waris daripada mereka yang meninggal anggap bahawa sakit yang dialami oleh ahli keluarga mereka yang meninggal akibat COVID itu adalah sakit yang ringan dan mereka tidak rujuk kepada fasiliti kesihatan dengan cepat, dan apabila dah dikesan terlalu lambat.
On reporting for COVID-19 deaths, Kyrie said that beginning March 1st, the announcement of such fatalities would be based on the figure received from the field every day.
Kerana sebelum ini laporan kematian yang diterima hanya diumumkan setelah proses pendaftaran kes di peringkat negeri selesai dan ada kalanya ia mengambil masa yang agak panjang sebelum ia diumumkan nak dapat kes number dan sebagainya. Oleh itu terdapat sebilangan kes yang tertunda untuk diumumkan dan ini adalah satu daripada faktor yang menyumbang kepada backlog bagi pengumuman kes kematian COVID-19.
Kyrie added that to ensure timeliness in reporting of COVID-19 deaths, fatal cases no longer have to wait for registration and should be reported within 72 hours after the death happened. At the same time, he stressed that the occupancy in the intensive care unit ICU for COVID-19 patients is still under control, adding that MOH has 2,210 ICU beds which can be used throughout the country.
Right, moving on. The Communications and Multimedia Ministry is always vigilant and focuses on improving communication services through the implementation of the National Digital Network or JENDELA to address internet access issues, including in Sarawak. Deputy Communications and Multimedia Minister Datuk Zahidi Zainul Abidin said the percentage of 4G network coverage in populated areas in Sarawak has increased to 82.86% in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared with 73.67% before the implementation of JENDELA in the second quarter of 2020. Zahidi Zainul said 4G broadband coverage in Baram has increased to 34.12% in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared with 25.97% before the implementation of JENDELA. He said for the same period, the network's coverage in the Betong parliamentary constituency has also increased to 78.65%, Hulu Rajang 18.31%, and Serian 78.75%. Zahidi said a total of 105 locations were installed with satellite broadband, including 100 locations in the longhouses in the Hulu Rajang parliamentary constituency. He said the construction of 60 new towers in Hulu Rajang had already started and was expected to be completed in stages from the fourth quarter of 2022 to the third quarter of 2023. For the installation of community Wi-Fi in Hulu Rajang, there are 3 community Wi-Fi locations provided in the longhouses, namely Kampung Umadaro, Kampung Baloi Ukap, and Kampung Sungai Asap. He ensured that the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission or MCMC will study the need to continue the community Wi-Fi project or provide other technology broadband in the future. The temporary postponement of Umrah trips following the spread of the Omicron variant in January affected about 19,000 pilgrims. However, the impact on those who suffered losses was minimal. According to Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister Datuk Sri Nancy Shukri, the number of pilgrims who had incurred losses due to the postponement was much lower. She added that those who were incurred losses were those who were unable to get a refund for some of the payments that had been made, while for most of the pilgrims, they were able to make the necessary adjustments. Earlier on January 1st, the government announced the postponement for 1 month beginning January 8. On top of that, the government has also agreed to pay compensation of 1,671 ringgit each to pilgrims who had to cancel their Umrah travel to be credited to the Tabung Haji savings account. Commenting on the compensation, Nancy said the ministry received about 8,500 applications, adding that payments were made based on the prescribed criteria. She said to be eligible to receive the payment, applicants should be using Umrah travel agencies registered with the ministry for trips between January 8 and February 7 and had received travel visas. Nancy also said that the standard operating procedures or SOP set were not meant to burden any quarters but to protect the safety and well-being of the Keluarga Malaysia or Malaysian family. She refuted the allegations that Umrah SOPs kept changing and made life difficult for Muslims, saying the claims were inaccurate. Now, the allegation that the principal debt of One Malaysia Development Berhad or 1MDB has not been paid until now is baseless, as it will only be mature between 2022 and 2039. Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz said until the end of February 2022, 1MDB's total debt was about 38.8 billion ringgit, comprising 32.3 billion ringgit in principal debt and 6.5 billion ringgit in interest.
Dahnya pula sebanyak 6.5 bilion ringgit. Jadi dakwaan bahawa belum lagi kita bayar prinsipal hutang 1MDB ini adalah tidak berasas, ya. Memandangkan prinsipal hutang-hutang tersebut hanya akan matang lambat lagi.
Adding to that, Tengku Zafrul said 1MDB's principal debt includes 1MDB Energy Limited bonds issued worth 7.35 billion ringgit, 1MDB Energy Langat Limited bonds issued worth 7.35 billion ringgit, 1MDB Global Investment Limited bonds issued worth 12.6 billion ringgit, and 1MDB IMTN Islamic Medium Term Note Sukuk worth 5 billion ringgit.
Wan, jual program kotak.
Biasalah, hari aku banyak submit idea lah di TVS dekat Picit.
Oh, macam best je. Tahun tak ada sih.
Tahun tu ada. Jadi, mana-mana kita orang yang mau submit idea best-best kita orang boleh cuba di Picit.
Sertai TVS Picit 2022 di www.tvstv.my/picit dan hantar penyertaan anda sebelum 20 Mac 2022.
Thank you for staying with us. Now on to some global updates. Authorities in Australia issued more orders for people to leave their homes on Thursday, March 3rd, after heavy rain triggered flash floods in its largest city. Officials warn the worst is yet to come, and some 500,000 people are likely to face orders to evacuate.
Australia's east coast has been battered by a severe weather system that has cut off entire towns and submerged hundreds of homes and farms as it has moved south from Queensland state over the past week. This second year of flooding comes as the La Niña weather pattern, typically associated with increased rainfall, has dominated Australia's east coast over the summer.
It is a La Niña that is behind all of this, that's basically facilitating these events. And that's a natural thing to occur. We have seen those over the past thousands of years that these cycles happen. So every 3 to 7 years, we see a La Niña. What is special this time is that we see 2 La Niñas in a row. And we also know, as I said, with the increase in temperature, we know that the atmosphere is holding more water, which means the more water we have, the more water can be dumped on the surface.
Dr. Nina Ryder, a research associate at the University of New South Wales Climate Change Research Centre, said the increase in flooding is most likely driven by climate change.
So what we've seen over the past decades is that the number of extreme rainfall events has increased. So the number has increased, but also the intensity, so the amount of rain that we have seen during these events. This is most likely driven by climate change, and that has several reasons. So one of the reasons is the increase in atmospheric temperature. So the temperature can hold 7% more water for each degree of warming that is experienced.
13 people have been killed since the deluge began a week ago.
Russian businessman Roman Abramovich had decided to sell Chelsea Football Club 19 years after buying the London site and promised to donate money from the sale to help victims of the war in Ukraine.
Abramovich said he would not ask for loans he has made to the club, reported to total £1.5 billion, equivalent to 8.0 billion ringgit, to be repaid to him, and the sale would not be fast-tracked. In addition, he told his aides to set up a charitable foundation that would receive all net proceeds from the sale. Earlier in the day, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson declined to comment on whether Britain would impose sanctions on Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, but said the vice was tightening on those around Russian President Vladimir Putin. There have been growing calls in Britain for Abramovich to be included in economic measures taken against Russians who are said to be close to Putin following Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Mr. Speaker, Roman Abramovich is the owner of Chelsea Football Club and various other high-value assets in the United Kingdom. He's a person of interest to the Home Office because of his links to the Russian state and his public association with corrupt activity and practices. Last week, the Prime Minister said that Abramovich is facing sanctions. He later corrected the record to say that he isn't. Well, why on earth isn't he?
Mr. Speaker, it's not appropriate for me to comment on individual cases at this stage. But what I can say, and I stand, Mr. Speaker, by what I've said in the House and what we've put on the record. But be in no doubt that the actions that we've already taken, that this House has already taken, are having an effect in Moscow. And by exposing the ownership of properties of companies in the way that we are, by sanctioning 275 individuals, already a further 100 last week, the impact is being felt. And what we will publish in addition, Mr. Speaker, is a full list of all those associated with the Putin regime. Of course, we have already announced sanctions on Putin and Lavrov themselves. I can tell the House that they will have heard what the President of the United States had to say last night. The vice is tightening on the Putin regime, and it will continue to tighten.
Abramovich, 55, who has Israeli citizenship, was one of the most powerful businessmen who earned fabulous fortunes after the 1991 breakup of the Soviet Union. Forbes has put his net worth at $13.3 billion. His spokeswoman said on Monday that Abramovich had accepted a Ukrainian request to help negotiate an end to Russia's invasion, which Moscow calls a special operation, although it was unclear what role he would have. British lawmaker Chris Bryant has told Parliament Abramovich was terrified of being sanctioned and was moving to sell his assets, accusing the government of being too slow to act.
And that wraps up TVS Nightline for tonight. Once again, I'm Hari Zainuddin. It's been a pleasure.